Hi there, Lynn from Lynn's Garden in Port Orchard, Washington. Wanted to get a walk around today using my Canon camera because when I do the live walk-arounds on Facebook, they only allow you to do a vertical, so you don't get to see the full span of things. But this is coming out my back door. Obviously, it is raining today, or overcast and threatening rain, so I don't have my cushions out. But as I come out my back door, I see my beautiful lilacs. And these have gone through several rain and wind storms now, so they're not as purpley as what they used to be. Oh, there's Dipper, my crow. So, I think I'll take you up the right side. The right side has my son's shed on it. And of course, the pergola has gorgeous jasmine. And that hasn't come into bloom yet. They have budded up and blossomed out, but or budded up anyway, but the blossoms aren't out. And over on this side, this is my raised garden to the side of the yard. And I have a bird bath that goes over there. I've got honeysuckle planted along the fence line. And there's salad and Shasta daisies and some daylilies up there. But this is pretty much a more natural area. There's an evergreen huckleberry and a blueberry bush, but lots of salad berries, which make it very green all year long because they are evergreen. And this guy up here on the fence, well, that's a Russian lady vine, and I'll tell you, that's a holy terror. I like to keep a hummingbird feeder in there, and a couple times a week I have to come out and clip all of the hanging new sprouts that want to crawl over Chandra's roof. And I'm getting ready to take the rake and get down all that stuff on Chandra's roof, simply because every year it'll grow over the top and to the other side. That's how aggressive this Russian lady vine is. But it's pretty. In the fall, it has a white wispy blossom to it that is really, really very airy and pretty. Now, looking down the path line here, I've got hostas. Up against the shed, I have some asters that bloom in the fall, late summer, early fall. Got a hanging basket. Have some hellebores down there. And you can probably see in the distance I've got the rambling rose in yellow that is just gorgeous this year. I don't think it's ever been quite that gorgeous. And panning over here to my right, I have that super duper Kokosa white dogwood. I guess that's how you pronounce it. I don't know how you pronounce it, but anyway. And that is in full bloom, kind of pointed downward because of all the rain. We have had at least 4 days of rain and high winds. The solar storms have been wreaking havoc with our weather system here. Sorry, just went up a couple steps. And over along the center pathway, my red rhododendron is blooming. So you can see the contrast of colors there. I've got, to the left, to the left and down, I've got a white rhodie and an azalea down there. And then I have a blue lace hydrangea in the back. And I have the Japanese pyrrhus. There's phlox that are going to get, oh golly, about half as high as the rhodie by late summer. And those will be purple and kind of a purplish with a yellow center, I believe. And then the lilacs, and underneath the lilacs over there, I have the burning bush, and I've got Japanese anemones, and I had to replant my sand cherry from out front, or down below with the pond, because the deer were eating it all to bits. So I put that in there, so that's the red pop of color you see. And that blooms a very pretty pink in the early spring. And then here next to me, I have another hydrangea. And my ground cover of choice is a sweet woodruff. And that spreads unbelievably. But it also has very pretty leaves and very pretty dainty white flowers. And I've got intermittent roses, and I have a couple of yellow potentillas, which I've got a couple of blooms on them right now. I let it go to seed this last year and didn't pick a bunch of the dead blossoms off. So we'll see what happens if I spring up with any throughout the garden. And here's another Japanese pyrrhus here, still holding on to some of its blossoms. And I have lots of azaleas. They're an early source pollen for the bees. And down at the base of this one, there's some basket of gold. All that pretty yellow. And the bell you hear is a cat. And then my son's idea was to have a fountain in the middle, which I did. I put the fountain in the middle. And that is a bird bath inside that I had to jury rig from the bottom, put the piping up through the top, and it draws water from the actual basin that I have here. I put in a 6 by 6 by 18 inch Rubbermaid basin, and just checking out the goldfish. I've got about 5 or 6 goldfish in there, but they're all in hiding. I make little caves for them and they go hiding in there. And last year I transplanted some pond lilies to my ponds down below, so there aren't quite as many in here. There's one plant in here this year, and it's kind of struggling. But it'll come along as soon as the weather gets nice and the water warms up. And then I always get water hyacinths too to put in here. And I only put in 2 this year. Usually I put in 3, And by the end of the summer, it's covered in water hyacinths. But it has been so cold and nasty here. We have temperatures still down in the low 40s at night. We've even gone down as far as the 38s. So it is not summer here yet. And then turning this way, we have my frog pond. And I just had to redo that. The liner, I had a leak somewhere, and I don't know if it was in the basin itself or whatever, but I did buy a liner to put over the basin, and that seems to have solved the problem. But I had to do that midwinter. So that was not a fun job. So I just put the liner in midwinter, and then I didn't have enough rocks to fill around and hide the liner. So I just did that this week. We went and got rocks. But the birds like to come down and bathe in this one. And over here to the left, we have sweet woodruff mixed in with the iberis or candy tuft. Have daylilies along Chandra's shed. And there's also a panicle hydrangea in there. So as you can see, I've got a mixture of early blooming stuff and later blooming stuff. And this is a St. Paul's hawthorn, and it tipped over last year in a windstorm. So we have it tied to the shed, and it did not break the main root, but it's taken a while for it to get resituated, and it seems to be okay, but we've been having such high windstorms, I'm not taking the rope off. And this year it's decided that it is not going to blossom but a couple of blossoms because all of the energy has gone into the growing, which is fine with me because those roots need to be down there. It's a very full tree, and it is absolutely gorgeous when it's in bloom. And towards the back, we have what is called a three-toed maple. It doesn't have a real maple leaf to it. It just has like a three-pronged leaf. And a beautiful Japanese maple that started out at about fence height when I planted it, and now it is gorgeous. And back there along the fence we have jasmine, and I can see that there is a bindweed growing in there. There is also a very pretty clematis back there. So I hope that, you know, this wider view with this particular camera is going to do the yard justice, because when I do the walkthroughs on Facebook, it just takes the vertical. And over here, I have a yellow rose in honor of my mother. She loved yellow roses. And on this side of the pond, I have the candy cane rose, which I've got one in bloom. I've got a bunch of buds, but this is the only one that has blossomed. It's called candy cane or peppermint. Or at least that's what it was labeled when I bought it. More hostas, more phlox, and in the obelisk here, that is a climbing or a tree ivy. It actually has a base that is solid enough and grows thick enough that it's called a tree ivy. And that, they say, will go to 10 feet, but I'm going to keep it about as high as it's going there. But it has gotten a lot wider and fuller this year with all this rain. Hello, Pussycat. That's Belle. She's managed to slip her bell and collar 3 times in the past week, so now she has a dog collar on. And hopefully you can hear the birds. When I'm not out here walking around and talking, the yard is full of birds. And next to the yellow rose, we have a pink one. And this was an expensive one. This was a David Austin, and I don't remember the name, but it's got that double flower thing going on inside. Very, very full. And it is always loaded with buds and blooms, which it is right now, but that's the first one that's come out. We had one day of almost 70, and a couple of roses came out at that time, and then the rest are just sitting there. And I don't like what they're doing because with the rain, the ends turn brown. And then the one in the middle obelisk here, that started out as an heirloom white rose. And the white rose, it obviously was grafted because the white graft died, and now I'm left with a red one. So that'll be pretty in the coming weeks too. And I've got some bluebells that are coming along, and some basket of gold that spread out this year, and it was really pretty, but now it's all gone to seed pretty much. And over here on the corner of my shed is a great big camellia. And I'm not going to let it get too much higher than that. I prune it down every year. And just get a view going back that way. Yes, cats. You're in the film, cats. And along my shed, I have beautiful fire and ice hostas. And I have divided these up so that I've been able to plant them everywhere. Down below at the ponds, out at the little circle, at the front of the driveway. Every year I divide them. This year I did not, so I'm going to have issues next year. I'll have to divide them right off the bat. But look at how full and big those are. And I also have some liatris that's in here next to the bluebells. More azalea. And this lovely tree, which has almost died twice, is coming right along this year. It is a blue chiffon hibiscus in tree form. And that'll be covered in a pale bluish purple flower later in the summer. So when the azalea turns green, I will have the red lace maple here that stays low and rounded. I'll have the green burning bush that's here, and the bluish purple, and a bunch of pink and red and yellow. So it'll be very colorful. And by then the dogwood will die down and there won't be anything left of the white blossoms, which I will be sweeping up constantly. And because this one over here was more sheltered by the tree from the rain, you can see the big blossoms that are open. Blossoms are huge. And I put this in several years after the first one over there. That's why there's a difference in size. But this one's catching up. And this looks to be maybe a slightly different variety. And back there I have a bronze 9-bark and irises. And down here there is a maroon hellebore. And in there I've got a couple of Japanese pyrrhus. I have some hollyhock. And I also have a panicle hydrangea. And I have a volunteer that I put in this twisted wire thing. I have no idea what it is. I do get volunteers. It comes up as a wild cherry or a poke cherry on the ID thing that I have. But we'll see what happens. If it flowers, it stays. If it doesn't, it goes. And I'll plant it down by the pond. They never really go in a compost heap or anything. I usually relocate. And then going to the back patio, this is the farthest patio. Along the other side of my shed, I have a deep red knockout rose. I raise mason bees as well. That's what keeps the flowers looking so good. There is also a blueberry along my shed in the back. And lots of lilacs. And this very frilly tree is a Chinese pistache. And it's in no relation to the pistachio. But it has very frilly leaves. And that was compliments of Shonder. Shonder goes online and he says, "Oh, I like this." And then next thing I know, I've got a plant to plant. And he's the same way when he takes me out to a nursery. And over there behind the bench, we have rhubarb, which the dog dug up 2 of them, so I planted them down below. And I've got the 2 down below that are doing very well. And she left 2. I don't know what, I had Canadian ones in there, and then I had another variety in there. So maybe it was the variety she didn't like. And this tree back here, I just researched this morning. This is a pussy willow tree. And it is very confused this year. It has no clue what it is doing. At first, when I came out a week ago, I thought it had died back. But it's got leaves coming on the branches. And it's growing more pussy willows. As I said, our weather has been so strange. And I'm not too worried about it. I'll give it through the summer to see what it's going to do. And if it doesn't do anything, I'll hack her down. I do have more of it coming up at the bottom. So even if the main branches die off, I can always hack her down towards the bottom and let it regrow. And then down here at my feet, I have a hollyhock. In here, I've got phlox, Shasta daisies, some daylilies. There's a volunteer holly back there. And then I've got the arborvitae across the fence. And that area in there is dog play area. She ruined everything that was in there, so I had to take it out. I took out several princess spireas, a lot of phlox, a big blue hydrangea, which is doing fabulously out front. And I was crossing my fingers and saying prayers on that one because the hydrangea was one of my favorites. And if she had ruined that, I probably would have killed her. But it's doing well, and I'm hoping it blooms because it's sensitive to pH. So I'm hoping it still is blue, but it might not be. And then back here behind my shed, I did a walkway, and I planted hostas. Most of these, I believe, are an autumn frost hosta. And then right here at the end, there's another hollyhock. And growing on the fence, there are the traditional bindweed that we get out here, which is a wild morning glory, and they usually flower in white. But this is the back patio, and I let a certain amount of low weeds grow in here. I pull out the big tall ones, but I let the low ones go. Because I have enough of a job weeding them out of the brick. And this white back here that's in flower is another iberis or candy tuft. And right next to it, where the cat is a pink one. And they flower at different times. The pink one will flower usually most of the summer. The white one is totally a spring. And in previous years, I have put either pansies or petunias in my watering can. However, the dog on occasion will grab the watering can and drag it through the yard and everything falls out. So, not this year. It won't be planted this year. And over here on the left, we have a peach-colored tea rose. And I'll do more walk-arounds in the future when things are in bloom. But the color on this bronze 9 bark is unbelievable. It totally astounds me. Just gorgeous. I had 9 barks that were native when I lived in Deer Park, Washington, but they weren't bronze. And when I found this one, I said, oh my goodness. And this has a pink flower instead of a white. I also have lilies that are coming up. And my little anemone over here has ceased to bloom. And as I said, with the hot temperatures that we had for one day, I mean hot, we're talking 70 degrees, I was able to get another rose in bloom. And these are an Everbloom red rose. and it's loaded with blossoms or loaded with buds.